All right, let's go ahead and get started, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today, and welcome to our Database Modernization Strategy webcast. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Len Thompson, and I am Broadcom's Mainframe Division Community Manager. And again, I'd like to welcome you to today's session. Before I hand you off to our presenters, I just want to let you know that we are recording today's session, which is why you're currently muted. If you have any questions along the way, please use the questions box along the right side of the screen, and I will read those out loud at the end. And the folks will be able to answer them for us. And if we do have time at the end, I will also let you know how you can have your line unmuted if you prefer to ask your questions that way. The recording for today's session will also be posted out in the IDMS and Datacom communities either later today or tomorrow. And the last thing from me is that we're always trying to ensure that these sessions are valuable for you. Excuse me. With that in mind, we have a survey that will pop up at the end of the webcast. You'll also get a thank you email either later today or tomorrow that will also include a link to it. I'd really appreciate you taking a few minutes to give us some feedback so we can make sure that our next session is even better. And with that out of the way, I'm going to hand you off to Sheila, Dave, and Nikisha, who are going to be our presenters today. So take it away, guys.
Thanks, Len. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for today's session. We certainly appreciate your time and consideration. For those of you who I have not had the opportunity to meet as of yet, my name is Sheila Miller. I'm the product manager here at Broadcom, supporting our IDMS and Datacom customers, helping to drive overall strategy with the help of our product teams and more importantly, you, our customers. Joining us today on the webcast, although not on the slide here, is Nikisha Newberry, who I work very closely with from a product ownership perspective. So Nikisha is our product owner for IDMS, and also Dave Ross. Many or most of our IDMS customers know Dave. He's been around for quite some time. Those of you may not be familiar with Dave on the Datacom side, but Dave is our IDMS, one of our IDMS subject matter experts, supporting our products for over 30 years. He's worn many, many hats throughout the years, from development to engineering management, product owner, product manager, and now Dave is in an architect role, assisting our product teams in shaping the database modernization strategy. So a big thanks to Dave on sharing today's message to our communities. I do want to mention that this is really the first of several that we'll have. This is really just to introduce everybody to our database modernization strategy from, again, both from an IDMS and Datacom perspective, and we will continue to host these sessions as we move through our strategy and start delivering things. So I think that Len mentioned we're going to have some polling, a few polls throughout the session. So just be prepared to be interactive, ask questions, answer the polls. It makes it more exciting for us and for everybody else. So we want to hear from our customers. So with that, Dave, if you can go to the next slide. Okay, so just the topics of discussion for today's session. We'll touch on Broadcom's overarching mainframe strategy, just as an introduction, and then we'll share insight on Zowe, and we'll talk about the traction we're making in the open source community. From a database strategy perspective, we'll walk you through some of our use case analysis, some of the scenarios that we're looking at that will help address the skills challenge, both from an app dev and a DBA perspective. And we'll talk about what's available now and what could be provided in the future, again based on customer needs and how we're executing to deliver against that strategy. And finally, we'll just touch before we close on how you guys can help shape the future and talk about ways you can get engaged. So next slide, Dave. Oh, just a disclaimer here. Basically, because we're reviewing roadmap and strategy materials, everything we talk about is subject to change until it becomes generally available. So there's the fine print, and we can go to the next slide. All right, so just a high level on how we think about the mainframe from a technological perspective at Broadcom, which is really pervasive across all of our portfolio of products here at Broadcom. So open, frictionless, and optimization. So from an open perspective, we really believe that the mainframe needs to be open, that the open source tools and capabilities that people use should be able to work across all environments. The latest technology should be able to work with the mainframe. You hear about all these new modern toolings, the Git, Jenkins, Gulp, whatever they may be, they should be able to work seamlessly, with the mainframe, make it easier for for all users to be able to interact with the mainframe, and also through APIs. And we need to be able to tie the mainframe in that way as well. And we'll talk more about that as we go through our presentation. So frictionless, we need to work on tools that encourage rapid adoption and consumption of the capabilities on the platform across all skill levels. I mean, we talk a lot about the next gen user, and which is really, really important, but it's not just for the next gen users. It's really to help everybody, you know, help the next gen users, help the seasoned professionals who've been on the platform for many years. It's all about making it easier for people to use and leverage the core value and the capabilities that the mainframe offers and has been offering for years, and just getting better with age. And then optimization, helping our customers get the most out of the mainframe platform. Again, the greatest efficiencies, helping you avoid issues before they happen, helping you really capture some of the you know, the tribal knowledge as you go forward, some of the things that you guys have within your environments, and being able to pass that down to the next generation. So this is our focus across all of our products at Broadcom, whether it be new products or long-serving products. We think about these things as we make our investments in our development investments and in overall investments from a product strategy perspective. So next slide, please, Dave. So this is transforming the mainframe database. So this database strategy really ties back into the mainframe strategy, that I just talked about. So opening up and making our databases more extensible through the use of APIs and services, making our databases more frictionless through simplification and automation, again, at all experience type levels. So making it easier for, you know, our users to maintain existing applications, build new, manage the ongoing health of their systems on a daily basis. And we're just looking at ways that we can increase optimization by leveraging machine learning to enable like self-healing systems. So as I mentioned earlier, we can identify problem areas before they occur, before they impact the business, being proactive rather than reactive, and eliminating risk from system outages and those types of things. And throughout our conversation today, we'll share insight on techniques and platforms that we are evaluating to execute against our strategy, which includes Zowe. I think a lot of people are starting to hear Zowe. Those of you who are not, I'll touch on it here because I don't want to steal Dave's thunder. He'll be talking about it in just a second. It's really an open source platform that was announced at Share back in 2018. It's being delivered jointly by Broadcom, IBM, and Rocket Software, with a common goal of modernizing all interactions with the mainframe, again, for all types of users, system programs, developers, DBAs, and those are just examples. Essentially, it makes the mainframe more cloud-like with a modern user interface to the ZOS using the latest tools of the mainframe. So being open source really enables everybody to participate, and we're encouraging our users to get involved. It's a great network for all of the mainframe community, and I actually put in there on that slide there, zowe.org. So if you click on that link when we share these slides as part of the follow-up, you'll be able to get to that if you're not familiar with it. It's a great resource, and again, it gives you some good information and a great way to get started and getting involved in this open source project. So let's get started. I'm going to hand it over to Dave now to get into more of the nitty-gritty details, and I will be back towards the end. So take it away, Dave.
Okay. All right, let me just get back to where I was then on the. Okay, so as I was saying, let's just get to the next slide. Okay, so Sheila mentioned what Zowe is. It's an open source project for the Z platform. It is aimed to make the mainframe look more modern so that it looks similar to cloud platforms that are used by sometimes we say next generation developers, but it's really all kinds of modern applications, and it's really the new ecosystem for IT. So it consists of three components. There's the application framework. This is a browser-based user interface that provides a framework for a desktop that can have applications that execute ZOS services. The application framework was provided by Rocket Software. Two components that were created by CA Technologies are the API mediation layer and the Zowe CLI. The API mediation layer It's a gateway for ZOS services, similar to other types of gateways. It provides a single entry point where API clients can connect to invoke services. In order for those services to become known, it provides a catalog and discovery service so that API users can find out what's available in an automated way. And it also provides a framework for single sign-on. By this, I'm referring to a external security manager microservice that allows your APIs to participate in the same security that you use to secure all your other resources. The third component is something called the Zowe command line interface, and this is a Windows or Unix type of command prompt interface to the mainframe. And the significance of this is not so much that it lets you type in, say, TSO commands from a Unix shell prompt, although that might be attractive to some types of users, but it enables you to use all the common tools and development environments that are popular on those platforms with the mainframe, because many of those tools do use command line interfaces to invoke the services that they control, so that now you can use the same tools, like Sheila mentioned, Jenkins or things like that with the mainframe. Okay, well, we talk a lot about APIs, and why do we talk about those? They do provide modern access to ZOS services, tools, data, and that becomes a foundation for user experiences that would be modern. But there's two types of APIs that we talk about, especially with relation to the database. There are the business APIs, which are really external customer-facing APIs, and these expose the applications and data that the business runs. These applications may be based on Broadcom mainframe products such as IDMS and Datacom, or they could be based on IDM subsystems such as KIX or IMS and DB2. But the key point here is these are APIs that would be exposing the applications that customers have built to run their businesses. Okay. The other side of that is sort of the system APIs, and these are related more to systems management and DevOps. And if you think about what most of our products do, our products are not end-user application products like SaaS or some of those companies. Our products allow customers to manage their environment and to build their applications. So when we talk about our system APIs, we're also interested in providing APIs that administrators and developers can use to develop their systems and manage their environment. And these system APIs then can be exposed through either web user interfaces or command line interfaces. This is just a little bit of an eye chart that shows how the API mediation layer works. And this provides the ability for a REST API client to invoke an API through some sort of a distributor or gateway that can then be routed to the appropriate gateway instances. It provides highly scalable support, allows the REST API clients to discover what services are there, to get documentation about those services, and then to invoke the security microservice to ensure that the user invoking the service is authorized, is that they're authenticated, they're who we think they are, and that they're authorized to invoke the service. And then at the bottom here, we can see where the API instances. One thing I'd like to just point, I mean, this says REST everywhere here. And in general, REST is commonly used to talk about APIs, but in some cases, our APIs may be truly REST. In some cases, they may be more RPC, remote procedure calls. So when we talk about APIs, we're really talking about a way of exposing services that are useful to manage the mainframe through HTTP protocols. Okay, the API mediation layer has some benefits. that sort of expands upon the slide we just looked at, where there's the catalog, the gateway, and discovery services. And these are actually based upon open source frameworks that are available now. A lot of it is based on frameworks that are provided by Netflix. The gateway is based upon the Netflix Zowe open source tools, and the repository is based on Netflix Eureka. And this, on the right here, you can see there's just a quick screenshot of what the API catalog might look like, where it shows the available services and then provides documentation for those services that is generated with something called Swagger, which is a popular documentation framework. Okay, so now that's with that
Dave,
very brief.
Dave, before we get, I think this is where we wanted to insert our first poll, if I remember correctly.
Okay, sure.
So if we'll take about 15 seconds or so, let folks take an opportunity to answer that question for us, we'd certainly appreciate it. And this, we're polling the audience because it helps us understand where you are, from making sure our strategy aligning with where you are, I guess, with your strategy. So thank you for participating. Okay, Dave.
Okay, ready to go on? Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about what our strategy is, and we've broken this down into separate strategies for developers and administrators, because unlike many of the other Broadcom mainframe products, which are oriented towards systems management, the databases do need to be managed, of course, but these are the products that our customers use to create their enterprise applications. So there's a couple of different types of personas. So what we've done here is we've kind of identified some of the key personas that our strategy is aimed at, and some of the high-level use cases of the problems that they're trying to solve, and then sort of a general idea of the solutions that we are looking to provide as part of our strategy. So the key personas from the developer perspective would be the application developers, of course, and we break that down into experienced application developers and what we call next generation application developers. The experienced application developers, usually someone who's older, been in the field for a long time, is very comfortable with the green screen and 3270 type of interfaces, knows the mainframe very well, may not know the new world as well, and may not see as much of a need for it, although that's probably an unfair generalization because there are many experienced developers who are very interested in the newest technology. Then the next generation application developer, this might be a younger developer that has recently graduated from college or university and has been trained in many of the new technologies, or it could be it could be a more experienced developer who's moving from the mainframe to the distributed world as well. There are some other personas that have a stake in this as well, automation engineers and Q engineers and auditors who want to see that certain things are done. And of course, even though the enterprise architects are not personally using these tools or building them, they're key influencers that are really setting the direction for their organizations, and they really need to know what our strategy is and so that they can fit it into the overall customer strategy. Some of the use cases that we would consider trying to solve here are customers in many cases, want to build new applications that leverage what they already have. There's, in general, in the industry of the years, over the last few years, there has been the thought that in order to build modern applications, you have to migrate off of IDMS and Datacom. And customers are starting to realize that has a lot of risk and may not really have the return on investment that it might seem initially. Customers need to maintain their existing applications. And this is when we as the experienced application developers retire and newer developers take over, they still need to maintain their existing applications. Our government regulations change, applications need to change. Even if they're not being actively developed on the mainframe, they still need to be maintained. And we're looking at how can we enable developers to use modern development tools, integrated development environments, scripting tools, testing frameworks in order to maintain these existing applications. And then there's not really related so much to Zowe, there's the very strong need that personal information must be protected. And so we have some approaches that we can propose for that as well. So what are our solutions here? One is that we're looking to provide tools or recommendations on tools for customers to create APIs for their applications. If you think about it, it's probably not Broadcom Mainframe's role to provide APIs on your enterprise applications because they're your applications. We can help you build them, but ultimately it is up to users to build the APIs that expose their enterprise applications to their end users. But what we can do is look to provide APIs for developers to enable them to use modern tools to maintain their applications. And we can also look to provide tools to detect and protect personal information in databases. These are other Broadcom mainframe products that do work with our databases, including data content discovery and the test data manager tool. Slide. So when we talk about tools for customers to create their applications, these are user-developed APIs, as I mentioned, that leverage and extend your existing databases to new mobile or browser-based applications. And there's a couple of sets of tools for both IDMS and Datacom. We provide SQL and the product we call Server, which is really a word for our OWC and JDBC drivers. And these have been an important part of our modernization strategy for a number of years now, and still are a key way that you can use modern interfaces to access IDMS and Datacom databases by using OWC or JDBC to access the database from a different platform, and then SQL as a access language, because for both products, our SQL engines provide full access to the underlying legacy network or inverted list databases that are at the core of these products. But there are also some other products. One that we'll talk briefly about is something called Live API Creator, and there are other vendor tools that are available that can help you build customer-facing applications on top of IDMS and Datacom, either with or without IDMS Server or Datacom Server and SQL. Okay, for application developers, we're looking to provide the capability for them to use modern tools to maintain their applications, whether they're written in COBOL, generically, or ideal for Datacom and ads for IDMS. And we're looking to simplify and automate their mainframe application development. These APIs and command line interfaces would enable the use of the popular tools and IDEs and automation tools, and also can be integrated with Zowe. To the API mediation layer will provide service discovery and endpoint resolution, and the documentation will be online.
And so, Dave, we're going to pause there for the next poll. And this next poll really kind of addresses what you just went through from a development use case of maintaining existing applications with scripting and modern DevOps type tooling. So, if we could take a few minutes and have the audience respond to this, this would be helpful for us. Thank you all. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so and now the other set of personas that we've been looking at are the administrators, the database administrators and capacity planners, and within the administrators, we break this down the same way. The big elephant in the room. One of the biggest issues about the mainframe is that the people who know how it works are nearing retirement age or have passed it in some cases. So we have experienced DBAs, once again familiar with the command line interfaces on the mainframe, and newer DBAs that might be new to supporting IDMS or Datacom or new to the industry. And so what we're looking at here is we want to simplify database administration and make it so that it can be automated. We're looking to provide standard ways to install and configure software through ZOSMF workflows and standardized packaging to automate and simplify the database administration. Here's where the Zowe APIs can come in, either APIs through the mediation layer or command line interfaces through the CLI to enable scripting and user administration. We're also looking to optimize operations by providing data for analytics, such as mainframe operational intelligence. And then another thing that we're looking at is actually maybe not so much related to Zowe, but looking at the underlying utilities themselves and streamlining those so that they'll be easier to use all by themselves and more amenable to being automated through things like the Zowe CLI and APIs. And another use case, which I think we have a poll question about this, is these APIs would enable us to provide mechanisms where you could manage database environments more remotely through things like tablets or other mobile devices. Is there a poll question here, Sheila, or is it a little bit later?
Well, we can do it now since you just mentioned it, so that works well. Thanks again, Dave. I think we're ready to roll.
Okay. Okay, so for administrators, we want to make it easier to administer your databases, to monitor and control your operations, and perform maintenance, and provide real-time performance data for the analytics tools. So the APIs and command line interfaces will enable this through shell scripts, web user interfaces, mobile devices. But these APIs become more or less building blocks that can be used to either provide customized interfaces or standardized interfaces that we might provide. But one key thing to remember about APIs and command line interfaces, they're not GUIs. They're not front-end form-driven tools. They are interfaces that allow either Broadcom mainframe or customers or partners to build the user interfaces that invoke the services. And Zowe can provide a way to manage these APIs and build them, include them as in the applications that would be built. And I did mention that we're looking to streamline utilities. If you think about many of our database utilities, they were created 30, 40 years ago when disk was more expensive, memory was much more constrained, CPUs were much slower, and so they were designed to run and optimize the environment that they ran on in those days. In today's world, we've got much more memory, faster processors, virtually unlimited DASD. So it may be possible for us to refactor some of these utilities to take advantage of that environment to improve performance and make less steps to simplify operations. And these in turn will allow us to use things like the Zowe client APIs to provide more automation on the use of these utilities. Okay, so now I'd like to just drill down a little bit into some example use cases. These are not the be-all and end-all. These are just examples to get you thinking. One of the things that is kind of an ask of us in this presentation is, this is what we think our strategy should be for moving forward with modernizing our databases and leveraging the Zowe initiative to do that. But we're looking for input from our customers. These ideas, do they resonate with you? What are other things that we could do? How would you use these APIs if we make them available, or what would we need to do in order to use them? So just some things to get you thinking. Here's one example of a use case for the Live API Creator product. This product is a product that allows you to very quickly, without writing a lot of code, to build RESTful APIs towards the underlying database records in either IDMS or Datacom. And it does work against, with IDMS, for example, it does work with network databases. With Datacom, it works with Datacom databases. You just need SQL enabled to use it. So in this case, for example, the business uses that an insurance administrator needs to update a customer's coverage, but we don't really want to put a fat client on their device, or maybe a company doesn't want to do that. So a developer would create an API that reads and updates a record from the database. Either that developer or another developer creates a user interface that could be on a mobile device or available through a browser, whatever the business has decided. And then that developer invokes the API from the user interface. The end result is that the user, the insurance administrator, can update the coverage for the customer. And this is kind of the new world that we're looking at, where the system of record still is IDMS or Datacom, but the tools and the interfaces that the user of the system uses are not ads or ideal based forms. This is just a quick picture of how Live API Creator would be used to do this. In this example, we're looking at the IDMS demo database, and there is a coverage record in there. And this shows you how the tool can discover the network records that are exposed through SQL, and that you can, so it can show you the network records here. These are the elements transformed as columns, and this is just I'm not quite sure why we see an 002D. I think that is just an artifact of something in the tool. And then you can then select the elements that you want to expose. In this case, they'd be exposed through a JSON document that would be generated. And so that's the resource. You're defining the model for your API that you're building. And then you can then define the various events, the HTTP methods that would be invoked as part of your API for either get, put, and then you can also do some extended properties that you can do more sophisticated things with. So this is an example of, we talked about tools that you as customers can use to build APIs that access your enterprise applications. Okay, so now we're looking a little bit what the developer, more of a DevOps use case. And in this case, a developer might need to change a mainframe application because it's say an investment application. A government regulation has been issued that says you need to record some information in this application. So even though you really don't want to change it, you're not enhancing it in any major way. You still need to make these changes. So the developer could invoke an API that would extract the mainframe code from the repository that it's in, whether that's Endeavor or the IDMS dictionary or wherever it is. That would extract the code, pull it down to their workstation where they would modify the code in their favorite editor of choice that they may be using to do Java development as well as mainframe development. Then they could run a script that would invoke APIs that would compile the code, put it back in the source control system, execute unit tests, and submit a job to run regression tests. These are very standard. That's a very standard set of operations that in the distributed world is just kind of assumed. Yes, you check your code in, and it's automatically you've got a Jenkins script that when you push it into a GitHub repository, it kicks off a Jenkins script and compiles the code on your build server and executes all your tests. So, and you do that every night so that you know that your code is always good. All this could then be integrated into the developer's integrated development environment. Okay, there's just a example of how this might look for ads, for example, where the developer invokes an API that extracts ads process code from the integrated data dictionary. For your Datacom customers, this is, ads is pretty much like Ideal is. It's in the same place. It's our proprietary language for online applications. Modify the code in their editor, and they run a script. That script updates our dictionary with the updated module, invokes an API to compile the code, and then again executes unit tests and submits the job to run the regression tests. Okay. An example of a Datacom use case.
Dave,
yes.
Dave, we're just going to pause here for one more poll here.
Okay, sure.
So this, our last poll was more specific around maintaining the existing applications, and this one's more specific to building new applications, leveraging what you may already have in place. So. Okay, thank you.
Okay, shifting gears to a DBA use case. Here's an example from the Datacom world where a DBA needs to run backup, of course, but for efficiency, it only wants to back up databases that haven't been recently backed up. So a DBA could use services to create and submit a backup job where if there's an API to return a list of files without a recent backup, that API would be invoked. An API could then be invoked to customize that JCL for the list, some standardized JCL for the listed files, and then to submit the backup job. And this could all be packaged as a shell script or included in a browser-based application, or it could even be done through a mobile app. But the key point here is that it becomes pretty much an automated process that can be invoked more easily than generating and editing, searching through files, which one have to be updated, have to be backed up, and then generating JCLs. And an IDMS DBA use case around managing storage, where the DBA could use some services to invoke an API that is going to look at the IDMS log, and that would be returned as a JSON document. Could then scan the log contents for short-term storage events using any of a variety of scanning tools, such as Splunk or even just grep or anything, and then could invoke an API to issue a DCMT, those are IDMS management commands, to vary the storage. And again, just like for the other use cases, these services could be packaged as a shell script using the CLI, in a browser-based interface, such as the Zowe UI or another interface, or even a mobile application. And one last use case around performance and tuning. And this is DBAs do need to monitor trends. They need to have a view of things acting normally or not. So a Zowe API could return performance information, and then a process could invoke that API at regular intervals and then push that to a product such as the Machine Operation Intelligence tool that then is able to analyze the data, learn the patterns of what's normal, and create what's recognized, what we refer to as the green highway, the normal range of how some statistic where it should be. This provides a graphics display where you can see if how your data, your real-time data up until now has, if it's still within the boundaries, and can generate exception events. Then the DBA could invoke a Zowe API to adjust and optimize the configuration, similar to some of the other use cases we looked at. Okay, so that's kind of some what our strategy is, what some of the use cases that we thought examples of how we might apply this strategy, and now what we'll talk a little bit about is how we're executing on that strategy.
I think before we go there, Dave, I just wanted to hit on the almost second to last poll that we have. I think this would probably be a good place to insert it before we get into the strategy slides. And you and I discussed this question earlier. We feel we know the answer to it, but we figure we'd put it out there anyways and get feedback. So we just want to hear from our customers on this question as well. Thank you. And just a time check, Dave, we have 10 minutes and we do want to leave some time for questions. So if you want to go ahead, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, so we'll kind of, I think I already talked about this a little bit. What we're really doing here is we're trying to help you understand how Zowe can help provide the capabilities. We're doing some limited initial investment to produce a minimal viable product around the client and the APIs. And then we were looking for feedback. So we're really looking for validation customers to join us over the next 3 to 6 months, roughly time frame, to start taking a look at what we're providing and validate that this is in the right direction, that this would be useful, identify additional use cases, and so that we can justify how much initial investment we would do. The status of what we have now, so far most of our efforts have been around IDMS as an initial start, although Datacom is not being left out. We're looking for the lessons we learned from IDMS to some degree. We have an enhancement to the IDMS UCF TSO capability that allows the Zowe CLI TSO plugin to work with IDMS DC commands, and that's available now. That's the PTF number 8699. So that's something that is available now that allows you to use the Zowe CLI to manage your IDMS environment. I should point out that with since Datacom does not have the equivalent of IDMS DC, the Zowe CLI can be used with Datacom batch tools and TSO commands and kicks commands already, so that the CLI could be used for both IDMS and Datacom as now. We're developing the minimal viable product for an IDMS API, REST/RPC, depending upon the service we're exposing. And of course, we're looking, and we will be recruiting validation users. We're not quite ready for them to provide anything yet, but we would be very much interested in people who would be interested in joining us when that is available. And of course, okay, so this is just a quick screenshot of what's there now. This is an example of using the CLI to execute a DCMT display task command, and you can see this is a Unix type prompt running on a PC actually, that then we're sending the Zowe TSO send. We're sending to a specific TSO address space, and the command we're sending is DCMT display task, and it's the task name, and then we get back the output. So that's in lieu of a demo. One last thing I'll talk about is the API capabilities of what we're building. These will be REST and/or RPC APIs depending upon the type of service. We've got a DCMT command service working in our labs already. We're currently working on providing a print log service that would essentially be the equivalent of OLP through an API. And then we will also, but we are planning on also supporting the compilers, schema, subschema, sysgen, OCF, and also exposing performance monitor data through an API. And these will all be compliant with the Zowe API mediation layer so that they can just leverage the gateway and discovery and security. But a key point here is that they'll run without Zowe, they'll run without ZOSMF, of course, and they don't leverage that layer. And substantive capabilities can even be run off the mainframe. The performance monitor service will not be that, but the other three services will be able to be run off the mainframe. Essentially, what we're exposing is the tools that allow our Visual DBA product to work. We're exposing those internal communication methods as APIs. And this is just kind of how the IDMS architecture would look, where you've got the Zowe CLI, Zowe API, and the web user interface. We've got the API that will use either SQL and JDBC to talk to IDMS, or can use the IDMS info address space that services performance monitor data. For Datacom, very similar model. We've just changed the names, and we're using the SVW interface to get the performance data. And just you can see here's an example where of the API catalog, where the API shows up, and example of Swagger doc for DCMT commands, the types of things that we have working now, where you can do a put to execute a DCMT vary command, a get to execute a DCMT display command. And then when you do these things, this is a developer's view of this using Visual Studio Code and a REST client. But the key thing here is we've issued an HTTP request to invoke the DCMT service for a task, and we're just doing a get on the task, and the task name is shutmon, and in this case we're issuing a DCMT display task shutmon command, and the response we get back in the JSON document is the output you would expect to see from the command. And I'll skip over the next one, and with that, Sheila, I'll turn it back to you with 5 minutes to spare.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I'll be brief. I just wanted to kind of wrap things up in a summary. So basically, all the capabilities, the modernization capabilities that we shared today in the session, build upon the existing value that all of our customers have invested in the mainframe platform, things that are already in place. So we continue to encourage our customers to just build upon existing value, continue to exploit the benefits of the platform. The mainframe, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, I know. I mean, it's proven, it's reliable, it's scalable, it's highly performant. We have support with zip specialty engines that help further reduce cost of operations. And I figure, why mess with perfection? That's my feeling. Our product strategy, I mean, we talked about being open, frictionless, optimized. It all positions us to be more agile, and it really enables us to better adapt to continuous technological changes. So we talked about all the ways we're looking to do that around skills challenge. It's so very, very important, and just enhancing our overall integration capabilities. And we talked about simplification, automation. self-healing systems and things like that. So we'll continue to evaluate ways to deliver by leveraging Zowe, open source platform, APIs, machine learning, other technologies and tooling, leveraging partners as well. But the end goal here is really to make it easier for our customers to leverage the investment that you've made in your mission critical systems that you've built your business on for the last 20, 30 years and really benefit from the value that they provide in the platform, what the platform provides, rather than pursue risky and costly migrations. So that's our summary there. But I did want to just, if you can go to the next slide, Dave, just wanted to just touch on quickly how you can engage. We talked about customer validation, and that's, these are ways that we encourage our customers to help influence our roadmap. We want you to be, engage with us. The communities is a great network for our customers and our partners, and gives you the opportunity to, get ideas, put ideas out there, and be involved. That's also where we post a lot of our communications to our customers in regards to webcasts and events and things like that. But also customer validation is really, really important, and it's really the key to success for our products. And without our customers, we can't be successful. So, I mean, we want to be able to get you engaged and help us work directly with us on things like this. It's exciting stuff, and it's we're looking to hear your voice and really help to shape the future of our product, follow our progress, give us feedback to our development teams, and ultimately make sure that we're hitting the mark when it comes to your customer-centric requirements. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. And on the next slide, Dave, if you go to, we have both Dave and I's contact information. Feel free to reach out to us directly. If you want to reach out to me, I can help facilitate ongoing conversations. We can have one-on-one roadmaps with you. We want to be engaged, so reach out to us. And with that, Lynn, I know we have 1 minute, but if we can maybe take a few minutes for questions, that would be fantastic.
All right, thank you, Sheila. Yeah, so we do have a couple questions that have come in. How hard will it be to install the API capabilities, and then the PTFs? Do we need any web server installed on the mainframe for this?
Okay, I'll take that. The installation it depends upon what you do. I will make no bones that the ZOSMF installation, which is required for the API mediation layer in Zowe, is a little bit challenging. IBM is working hard to make that easier, and I believe also as part of the next release of the operating system. So there's a little bit of a challenge there. The Zowe CLI also needs to be installed, but these are generic and outside the scope of IDMS. For our IDMS and Datacom APIs, we're using a technology called Spring Boot, in which case we would be delivering, our initial delivery would include the application server within the deliverable. So it would be something that would not require extensive configuration of the IDMS or Datacom APIs. Where the model for Zowe, we didn't really drill into that too much, but it's a microservice architecture where instead of a big application server where you have to deploy many different services, it's more an approach where you have an application server that's dedicated to one service, so that you can start or stop that as needed, and they can then be started and stopped independently of other services. And that's where the mediation layer, the API gateway, becomes really valuable, because it can discover which servers are up and which ones are not. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but for the IDMS and Datacom APIs themselves, they will be pretty simple to set up and get running.
Thanks, Dave. There are a couple more questions, but we are past the top of the hour, so I think we're going to wrap up. Gina, I do see your questions, and I'm going to send them over to Sheila and Dave as soon as we're done, and they'll get back to you soon with answers. Yes. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.